Welcome to the program. Welcome to the show. I am Mark Goldberg, host of Mark Blogs Watches. And we have another exciting, stellar episode for you today. But before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this video, let's go ahead and get the quick fist watch out of the way. And here it is. Just sit there, relax. I got this. Guys, I'm a dog trainer. Please support me and this channel by buying a copy of my latest book, The Art of Training Your Dog. Hardcover or electronic, you can get it globally. If you're not a dog lover, buy it for someone who is, and subscribe to this channel so we can do this again soon. Throw a like on this video. Now let's get along with the fist watch check. Guys, today I'm wearing a 42 millimeter Breitling chronomat. And you can see I like to wear my watches loose and sloppy, and yes, I do. Okay. I received what I think is a fairly interesting email, and so I thought I would jump on it, and let me go ahead and read it to you now. This is from Craig Murphy. Mark, nearly a year ago, I got on the waiting list for an Explorer 1 with my local Rolex AD, and then he names the AD. I'm going to omit the name of this AD, but I will tell you that the location is Houston, Texas. Craig goes on to say, I even paid full in the hopes that this would help speed up the process. And in fact, actually, I think that offering to put down at least a substantial discount sometimes does. Shows the AD that you're serious and that you're unlikely to refuse the watch when it comes in. But he went ahead and paid full. Today, I paid the AD a visit and discovered that they are ending their relationship with Rolex and Tudor. According to them, it is because they are so frustrated about having to set aside so much space in their store and advertise a brand that cannot or will not supply them with product. Do you think I have a shred of chance of getting my watch delivered after they are no longer a Rolex AD? Do you think that Rolex even cares about fulfilling my order? Would writing to Rolex help? Or should I just demand my money back and get in line somewhere else? Regards, Craig Murphy. Wow, there is like a lot to go ahead and pick apart here. So first, let's start with what the AD told him, which is that they are quitting Rolex. Rolex, I can't quit you, but apparently this AD in Houston can. And it says that the AD is ending the relationship because they're frustrated about having to dedicate space in the store and advertise for a brand that cannot supply them with product. You know, could that be true? Of course, absolutely it could be true. But I got to tell you, if the AD was fired by Rolex for whatever reason, they're not going to tell you that. They're going to say exactly what they told Craig. So I'm a little unsure whether Rolex quit this AD or whether this AD quit Rolex. You know, I visited a small AD in a small northeastern city. I don't even want to name the city because I don't want to get this AD in trouble. And I spoke directly with the owner. But I was at a small AD in a northeastern state here in the United States, and this would have been last fall. And he told me that not only had Rolex quit delivering him for quite a while, but Rolex told him via his rep to go ahead and stop spending the advertising budget until they could start delivering again. You might not be aware of this, but as Craig alludes, when an AD takes on the Rolex line, Rolex is going to come in, they're going to inspect the premises. It needs to be upscale, upmarket rental space, number one. They don't want to be, the Rolex does not want to be in a strip mall, right? So they want you to have good, heavy-duty, high-value retail space. So it's expensive, rent's expensive in those places. They want X percentage of the square footage of the store dedicated to Rolex. And in fact, that square footage needs to be at the front of the store. So if you've ever been in a Rolex AD and you think back, where was the Rolex display? Invariably, it was at the front of the store. And if they had other brands such as Breitling, like what I'm wearing today, or Tudor or Omega, that would have been at the back of the store because Rolex is very demanding of their ADs. And if you've ever received a mailing from an AD of the Rolex catalog or been driving down the highway and seen a billboard sponsored by an AD but with a Rolex watch on it, that's because Rolex demands that the AD does in fact spend a certain amount of advertising budget. But the guy I was telling you about, not in Houston but in the Northeast, was told by Rolex during the shortage, the worst part of the shortage anyway, last fall, that he could quit spending his advertising allowance, which they are contractually required to spend. So is it possible that this AD quit Rolex? Sure, it's possible, but I think there may be more to the story than we think. But that's actually neither here nor there in terms of answering Craig's question. So let's jump ahead and look again at the questions that he's asked. Do I have a shred of a chance of getting my watch delivered after they're no longer a Rolex AD? Craig, how would it happen if they said, hey, Rolex, you know, don't send us any more watches. We're done with you, Rolex. Rolex, I figured it out. I quit you, Rolex. If that's what the AD said, well, they're not going to get any more shipments. And no, you will be unable to get your watch out of them. And in fact, it disturbs me that you had to pay a call on the Rolex AD to find that out. Like, they should have called you. That AD should have called you. Remember, guys, Rolex and the AD are two vastly different companies. The AD is a jewelry store in Houston, Texas, and Rolex is a manufacturing company in Geneva, Switzerland. So these are two wildly different companies, but the one has a distribution contract with the other. That's how this works. So how is your AD going to supply you with a watch that from a line which they have basically quit? The answer is they can't. So it kind of disturbs me that you had to find this out, not secondhand, but by, calling the AD. You thought that the first thing they would have done was run through their list of deposits and call those people and say, hey, sorry guys, but we told Rolex to go stuff it, and do you want your deposit back or do you want something else? So no, you're not getting the watch from that AD, certainly not. Your next question is, do you think Rolex even cares about fulfilling your order? Well, again, you have to remember, Rolex is in Geneva, Switzerland. They don't know anything about your order. Rolex doesn't sell to individual watch buyers. Rolex sells to ADs, and ADs sell to watch buyers. So your deal was with the AD, and their deal was with Rolex. So you're basically done. You have to start completely over from scratch now. So does Rolex care about fulfilling your order? You didn't have an order in with Rolex. You had an order in with the AD, and the AD no longer has the line. And unless their last shipment happened to contain your watch, unlikely, then yeah, you need to get your deposit back and start completely over. And you need to get in line completely somewhere else. Boy, that's disheartening. I'm sorry to hear it, Craig, because I know you waited all kinds of time, trying to get that watch, and you did the good faith thing by putting down a deposit, and here you are. Your AD kind of lost track of you and prioritized you low. They really should have called you. What I might do now, if I were you, is I would call, if I were you, I would go call on whoever is the competitor to your AD, because every town, Houston, you're gonna have 3 or 4 ADs in that town. Figure out who is a family-owned AD in Houston versus corporate and go pay a call on them. Tell your tale of woe, and they might take pity on you. Get your deposit back from the one AD and then offer to put it down right away at the next one. By the way, I think that Explorer 1 that you're looking to purchase, it's a really cool watch. They just downsized it from 39 millimeter to 36 millimeters. I'll show you a picture of it right here. Honestly, I like it, and it is one of those watches where if my AD called me and said, hey, we got an Explorer burning a hole, in our inventory, would you like it? The answer would be, I'll be right over. I'm kind of a sucker for Arabics, as you can see on this watch here, especially loomed Arabics, and that Explorer has loomed Arabics, so I think it's a beautiful watch. I would worry a little bit about the size at 36 millimeter, because I got a 7¼ inch wrist. This is a 42 millimeter watch. But I do have a 34 millimeter date that I bought way back in the 80s from my local Rolex AD. And I mean, it wears a little small, but not as small as you would think. So some of those, I think the average person can pull off a 36. Well, I'll tell you guys, if there is any danger whatsoever in putting a deposit down on a Rolex at the AD, the danger is not so much what happened to Craig, because it's very rare that a Rolex AD is going to give up the line. But I always wonder to myself, what if that Rolex distributor declares bankruptcy and they just put you on the list of debtors? So you really want to know that the AD that you're putting a deposit down with is, reasonably healthy, financially healthy. So that's why it pays to, just know your AD. Buy from an AD that you trust, that you have reason to know. But you can take comfort in this. Rolex is a lot pickier than the Rolex collector. Remember, Rolex the manufacturer, Rolex the AD, you. The AD stands between you and Rolex. The customer of Rolex is the AD, the customer of Rolex is you. Rolex is really picky about who they sell to. So it's very unlikely that they're going to sell to an AD that's just about to go out of business. So I think generally speaking, you're safe putting down a deposit with a Rolex AD. But wow, I really almost never heard of a Rolex AD telling Rolex, we don't want you anymore in this place. It's even a little suspicious to me because Rolex supply is opening up right now, and Rolex is shipping more than ever to the AD. So since December of 2021, they have been shipping every other week as opposed to every other month. So I'm not entirely sure I believe what it is that your AD told you. Maybe they got kicked out by Rolex and they just don't want to fess up. Either way, Craig, get your money back, start all over. But if you tell your tale of woe to another AD in your town, chances are somebody will pick you up and feel sorry for you and just be glad to have your business. That's the way this works, guys. Fellas, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. And most important of all, talk to me in the comments. Did I steer Craig right? What do you think you would do in his place? Let's talk about this. This is Goldberg. Peace out.